Hi. We are here. Maybe if I reset the skin.
Come on in!
Come on in! If I reset the skin, maybe this will work for me. Queue manager. Yes. And what else am I missing? Hello sound. I'm missing a greetings sound. That's very important. That is integral. I see Jessica. I see Heller. We gotta tell. A Jigglypuff. And hello everybody else. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for being here at the start. How have you Garf maxed today? How have you represented that? How have you best exemplified Garf maxing today? I've just got my pen. Don't worry, I'm working on the tunes. Oh, it's hiding from me. Oh, you rascal. Every time I go to click on the playlist, it disappears. Interesting. Okay, that's the visualizer, which I don't really need. Yeah. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. First stream. It's my first stream. Give me a break. Cut me some slack here. It's my first stream. It's my first stream. I'm not gonna last long in the houndstooth jacket. It's too fucking hot. It was actually kind of a perfect day today. It was like 71 was the high. But even so, the days in I guess for this season, maybe sunsetting this particular look. It's maybe the last time I wear it this season. What is Garf maxing? Oh, I'm just having fun with Gen Z verbiage. Mogging Garf maxing. Garfield Mondays, meme culture type shit. I'm taking it back. Taking it back. We were weird with memes first. And hodgepodging vernacular, okay? It's our shit. You can borrow it. Just cite your sources. You little bitches. I don't even like using them ironically, but I am. But I am. Image story. What is image stories? What is that? Expound and tell. What is image stories? I don't know. I don't know, love. And when it comes to like the looks maxing, mogging, all that shit, it's young manosphere language. So I mean, it's nothing that we would ever embrace legitimately. It would be laughing at and never with. Which is hardly a psychological approach to bridge connection, right? But I don't want to. That's right, you can cable max here. That's how we roll. You made it through your Mondays. If you're here, presumably that means you're not working. You've fluffed your butt cheeks. You can settle in. You can absorb some other creature comforts, including me. And I'm such a creature. Is that Manosphere doc any good? It was worth watching. I mean, I didn't learn anything profound from it because I already know about it. And I've already kind of studied it. And who they talk to, I mean, it's like a couple of the guys were pretty self-aware of the interviewers' like motivations, and so they were really guarded around him. One of the guys that's like based out of Florida almost seems like he has some hope, and every one of them has daddy issues. Every single one of them has some insecure connection fostered by a parent, and usually the paternal parent. If we're looking for like a common theme. Which is, I mean, it doesn't necessarily create somebody who's gonna grow up insecure. Like, I didn't have a super strong relationship with my dad growing up. I turned out relatively alright. If I'm self-rating, you know, which you should do occasionally, you know, with humility and confidence. I just don't want to, you know, presume the false correlate that, you know, just because you don't have a great relationship with A or B or sometimes C and D parent that you're going to grow up with, like, you know, some branch of insecure attachment. That's not necessarily how it works. But in this case, you know, there's some similarities. I don't even want to say pattern. Like, it's barely a big enough sample size to say, like, there's a pattern detected, right? Not that I'm getting that, like, you know, scientific about it. Manic, welcome back. You beautiful human, welcome back. Reads tags, based. Those are my 3 middle names. Welcome in. Is it Claire? Claire de Montras? Bienvenue. Comment allez-vous? See, extend my French, don't test me. Just making sure I'm reading that correctly. Is it Claire? Always curious to know how people find the stream. I'm glad you found the stream. Welcome in. Manic, I am so sorry to hear about the struggle. The wave upon wave of Omni bullshit that you had to unshovel. Absolutely did not deserve it. Like, of all the people to get hit with that type of specific bullshit, least deserving. Did you get some snacks? Did you get some good snacks? I tried to send Manic a little snuck care package. As I would for any one of you facing undue bullshit. If I have your Venmo. Look, my bag ain't that deep. I can't do it that often, but when I can, and I got the gumption. When I can and I got the gumption, I'm gonna get you. When I can, I got the gumption, I'm gonna get you. With the station wagon, tarps, and shovels, I'll be there. Hell yeah. Station wagon could be the finest vehicle of our time. Embiggen to impact. That's the goal. We embiggen. I wish to embiggen all of you. Yeah, Heller, to answer the question, short answer, yes. The Manosphere doc is worth watching, especially if you are blessed to selectively not consume any amount of that content anyway. It's a good window into that world. Also, the guy that did the documentary is the same guy that did the that little, like, nerdy British rap that my money don't jiggle jiggle, it folds. He's that guy. So I knew I heard his voice before. I had to confirm that. I like to say certain people are omniphobic. It's quicker than listing multiple bigotries. I like that. Can we do borrow for borrow? That's how we learn. That's how we share knowledge between community members. I like that. I mean, I don't like that it exists, obviously, but I like that just for, like, a general, like, tentpole use case of, like, yeah, this person sucks. They just seem to ideologically be opposed to everything that I would consider pro-social and progressive and beneficial. They fucking suck. It's tidier than saying they fucking suck, though. You know, they're just omniphobic. They're even scared of green vegetables. Would you believe it? I find some of them too phallic. And it fosters deep insecurities. Yeah, it's either undeserved confidence or complacency. It's like some spectrum between confidence and complacency that, like, stifles curiosity for knowledge. But here at Claire, you'll find a bunch of thirsty erudites. Knowledge for the sake of knowledge types. One of my faves amongst the group, of course, hasn't been shouted out yet.
Over the hood, through the streets, and right into your brain.
We got Manic. Sound is here. Brother Sound is here. Let us know if you're able to stream this week. You beautiful nerd. like to say that certain people were gifted too much self-esteem by the universe. Yeah, that and the type of people that conflate like volume with certainty. Like they think they can be the loudest person in the room and no one dares clap back. Then you know they're correct, and it's like, well, now some people just don't want to waste their time, or you frighten them by posturing as more intimidating than the conversation really needed. And then socially that can be reinforced. You see it with like the cluster B personality types who end up in commonly leadership positions when they don't really deserve to be. Like they maintain a superficial command of what knowledge they need to get by. But when it comes to like conflict resolution and conflict that they usually created to resolve, they're dog shit at it. From a social psychology scope, there was a thing with height too. We had this like false correlation where we perceived height as this sort of like innate leadership trait, or at least, you know, those surveyed once upon a study would deem person just based on height alone as potentially, not guaranteed, potentially having greater leadership capabilities, right? And of course we know that not to be true. That's the same as saying because you're tall you're good at basketball, right? Height does not beget coordination or social intelligence. Or how to, you know, manage a practice or office, whatever else. The less someone knows, the louder they know it. Yeah, it's that Dunning-Kruger just comes right out. I guess height helped back when warlords actually had to do melee combat themselves. Yeah, if you needed to be a battle mage and you needed to just kind of like balance your stats between multiple skills, I get it. Me, I'm more of a spiky skill set kind of himbo. I'm a bard who's okay in a scrap, but I'm not your tank. You know? Plan on streaming Wednesday because big Warframe update to play, and probably more stories on Thursday. Oh wait, I missed the, there was like an MH thing. Tell, you said something about an MH thing I asked you to explain, and you probably did, and I missed it. I Garf maxed at the gym? Hell yeah. I went to the gym earlier too, that's partly why I started at 8 o'clock. MH Stories. How is MH Stories? I played a demo. Wait. Okay, I didn't get the answer on that. What is the MH Stories? And if it's a new game I downloaded and we talked about, I probably haven't played it yet. I haven't played much of anything else offline except for a few sips of what I put in a RetroArch. And getting a better feel for RetroArch. Normalize asymmetric intelligence. That, I like you already. We're gonna become fast friends. Yeah, and just humility in general is and there's data to support this too. You know, the evidence supports that just having humility alone, and empathy is a big one, is a marker of what we would define as intelligence, right? You know where your cliff's edges are of knowledge, and don't, like, certainly you have confidence in what you know, but the humility to command what you don't, and where to rely on others. I think that's very important. Oh, Monster Hunter Stories. MH is Monster Hunter Story. Okay. So yeah, that's that cliff's edge knowledge, the world I'm not familiar with. RPG styled game a la Pokemon or Digimon, where you raise the monsters. Not at all like the mainline series. Okay. So less combat driven, it sounds like. You can raise your little babies. I could dig it. I haven't felt FOMO with, like, you got me thinking about Pokopia? Is that it? What do I want to call it, like Pokotopia? Animal Crossing Pokemon. I haven't felt like FOMO about getting a Switch 2 until that came out. Catch me lying at the bottom of a brain cliff, like, I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. Eat your carrots. I might grab one of those in the break. See, we made chicken soup over the weekend. So I get a bag of carrots for that. I've got several left over. They're delightful. On the docket tonight for the just chatting portion of stream, I think I might need to turn the volume down on the music a little bit. Though I love that tune. Make sure that's not too much. Much too much. On the docket tonight, I have it's a cumulative analysis of some adolescent-focused video game research indicating its benefits, though modest, for mental health. So more video game research. We always look forward to talking about that. Another article on how doubting your doubts, and this is like a sip of like metacognitive approaches to mindfulness, which always helps. If you're thinking about thinking, then you're already taking the first step towards like a mindfulness practice, so good on you. Article on doubting your doubts can boost motivation, and another on the biological roots behind the chills you get from experiencing music and art. I had another one on political ideology shaping views and acceptable civilian casualties in war, but that's very fucking depressing, and so I think I'll save that for another day. Not that everything has to be light and plucky, right? Welcome in, Sultry. That's Sister Sultry. We're organizing a fundraiser together for April. Child Abuse Prevention Month is all April, and we'll be fundraising throughout it. If you stream and you wish to join us, and we deem you cool and worthy, which, bona fides don't take much to get a fix on, you may join us. You may join us by way of an application. I'm autistic, so I think that helps us connect. I am too. Diagnosed very late in life, along with ADHD. ADHD combined and very low support needs, but autism spectrum disorder all the same. On top of diagnoses I already knew, what would now be defined as probably complex PTSD, and major depression, which was probably secondary to the, now primary ASD and ADHD. So yeah, I also work in mental health. The good fortune of that. So yeah, to recap, article on gaming for mental health, another on metacognition, and then another on music. If you want some questionnaires sound, just remind me, and I'll send you some stuff you can kind of self-assess. Self-assessing doesn't mean diagnosis is guaranteed, but could reinforce what you already suspect. And then that's something you can share with the clinician later, and then they have some other tools to share with you to kind of cross-cut, is a term? You kind of cross-cut and eliminate what diagnoses are not and hone in on what may be. One's just called the AQ. There's a short form, there's ASQ and there's AQ, and there's short and long form versions of both. But they might already be in the Discord. If they're not, I'll it's reminding, but I can re-upload those. And they're nothing taboo to have or anything. And it doesn't necessarily, it provides clarity, doesn't diagnose. It provides clarity, it doesn't diagnose. It can be used in conjunction with other questionnaires to assist in diagnosing. But there's the other thing, seeking a diagnosis, especially later in life, is not usually covered by insurance, and it's very expensive. It cost me almost $3,000 to get to the answers that were pretty life-changing, but just reinforced what I already knew, and so then it begs the question, is that worth financing to reinforce what you already know? May not need that. To wit, I like to take the gatekeeping out of healthcare while also adding in some words of caution as you kind of guide towards self-diagnosing. If violence is caused by video games, Well, you can be comforted in knowing that that holy crusade by the right wing and even people like Hillary Clinton in the early 90s, resulting in like the ESRB and everything else. Thanks, Mortal Kombat, for the awakening. All of that's been debunked for a lot of reasons. There's no substantial evidence to support that video games are correlates for or even precipitating violence. Even those that are playing violent video games. One of the main reasons being because players often know, unless they're already playing with, say, like, antisocial personality disorder, where they're, like, hurting puppies and kittens and bugs behind the scenes and have no remorse about it, and then they're going to play a game and that shows them how to continue behaving remorselessly. Unless they already have pre-existing mental health needs, video games are not going to be a conducive outlet for them. But amongst all the other data that we're aware of, most players are aware of the separation of themselves and the avatar that they're projecting themselves into for the playtime, such that it's very difficult for the mechanism of actionable behavior being reinforced to then recreate violence like outside of that particular context. You're in Australia, which has some of the... Oh, I wonder what the time difference is there. It's quite a bit. Like a day ahead, I think. But yeah, that's... I remember that. Thank you for the reminder. About the game restrictions there. And then some games are even censored. Like the versions that you all get are sometimes censored beyond what's released elsewhere. Unless you can get creative and, you know, change what copies you own. Grams! Hello, Grams. Dad wouldn't let me play Doom at 17 because it was too violent. Wouldn't take, did you catch up to Doom later in life? I hope so. Doom mentioned and we get a zombie.
Dig me down one more time.
Welcome in, everybody. There we go. Starting off, now this is a cumulative analysis, so this is not a single bit of research. This is a team at Johns Hopscotch University. This is a team at Johns Hopscotch University, a totally real place, qualifying the bona fides of several other studies, adolescent focused on video games and mental health. And just to course correct, Johns Hopkins University, and a cumulative analysis checking the bona fides of several other studies. With the goal of determining, like, hey, if we're using video games as like a digital therapeutic is the term that gets thrown around. If we're using video games as digital therapeutic, do we have enough evidence to support that we can continue doing this? Like, those whose scores we've measured on, like, say, a depressive scale or generalized anxiety scale before playing a game, and then under controlled settings, testing for those same scores afterwards, did they go down at all? Which is a very simplified way to condense all of that. That being, like, research modalities in general. If the scores go down consistently, then they can say, yeah, there's something to work with here. If they've ruled out, like, anomalies and everything else. And of course, biases. You want to eliminate any potential biases there of someone looking to reinforce what they want to see. Because we would love to hear, selfishly, we'd love to hear that video games are good for your mental health. And there's plenty of data at this point, growing body of evidence to support that, yes, they can be, just as much as they can be a detriment to, like, gaming use disorder, that kind of thing. That's right. It's a sister university to John Jacob Jingleheimer Smith University. That's right. I got that. Grams, thank you. Good looking out. Decaf Brown on lock. And yes, a good dicking down to start us off before we get into some real talk. But we can remain silly throughout. Keep me on my toes. Claire, I hope you did eventually get to play Doom. Only Doom is eternal. Yes. One of the biggest Doom fans I know is here. Brother Zombie. Right there. It's a good follow. Let's see. Do I need to recrop this? Do I need to scoot my cheeks over a little bit? You got enough of me? Enough of the text and enough of me? Oh, I am already so hot in this jacket. Aren't I? I will not do that again. I will. My fan's on and I'm still like, am I starting to get some piss sweats? No, we're fine. Gaming for mental health. Could specially designed video games benefit the mental health of children and teenagers? Yes, but under very controlled circumstances. Think of it like medication. Dosage, duration, frequency, schedule, all of that. Just like anything else we do. But we know gaming often, begets fun, where we can kind of take the cognitive load off of our brains, and play literally helps the brain recalibrate and restore and heal and helps us get ready for rest. And rest, of course, being vitally important to managing the rest of our daily living activities, because good quality rest, neurologically speaking, is going to help us have a greater window of tolerance to appreciate all of the daily stressors that we encounter. So yes, video games good, but scheduled doses. The question guided a recent review of previous studies led by Barry Bryant, a resident at the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at Johns Hopkins adolescent psychologist, and Johns Hopkins adolescent psychologist Joseph McGuire. The investigators' review came in response to concerning trends in mental health problems amongst today's youth. An estimated, about a fifth of children and teenagers between the age of 3 and 17 in the U.S. have a mental, emotional, developmental, or behavioral disorder. Suicidal behaviors among high school students also increased by more than 40% in 10 years prior to 2019. I can't think of all the big social events that would have occurred since 2019 to add some psychosocial stressors to everyday life. Other studies show that the COVID-19 pandemic's disruptions worsen these trends. While research suggests that parents and caregivers are seeking out mental health care for children, wait times for appointments have increased. We found that literature suggests that even doubling the number of pediatric mental health providers still would not meet the need. And yes, in the United States, we do have a provider shortage. That's across the board, provider shortage for healthcare or psychiatry, but especially in psychiatry and psychology. Just growing population shortage of persons entering the field, unfortunately. Cost of education and the perils of capitalism catching up with everybody is part of that systemic concern. They found the literature suggests that even doubling the number of pediatric mental health providers still would not meet the need. In a bid to determine if so-called gamified, what I refer to as digital therapeutics, gamified digital mental health interventions or video games designed to treat mental health conditions benefited those with anxiety, depression, and ADHD, the research team analyzed their use in randomized clinical trials for children and adolescents. They identified 27 such trials from the US and around the world. The studies overall included that 2,911 participants, with about half being boys and half being girls, as more girls are playing games these days, between the ages of 6 and 17, the interventions varied in content, but were all created with the intent of treating ADHD, depression, and anxiety. For example, with depression and anxiety, some of the interventions taught psychotherapy-oriented concepts in game format. And the researchers found that video games designed for patients with ADHD and depression provided a modest reduction in symptoms. Not significant, but modest. And again, that's isolated to this, cumulative analysis. I can't state a single study, and this is a review of 27 others. Such as improved abilities to sustain attention and decreased sadness based on participant and family feedback by the study. So they're getting collateral input here too. That's really good. By contrast, video games designed for anxiety did not show meaningful benefits for reducing anxiety symptoms for participants. Which begs the question, what if we're playing something that wasn't perhaps deliberately designed for that, but we've seen data that supports a reduction in anxiety? For example, Power Wash Simulator, Minecraft, and what's the other one that came to mind? Flower have all been used in studies that we've talked about here before. Power Wash Simulator, Minecraft, and Flower have all been used in therapeutic settings before in different studies, though smaller, that did show a reduction in severity of symptoms after play, especially with anxiety. While the benefits are still modest, our research shows that we have some novel tools to help improve children's mental health, particularly for ADHD and depression. It's good to know that they noted increased focus, like intention. Of course, there's a lot of reward components baked into that, but if that can be applied outside of that gaming intervention to help, like, say, with homework or chores, if they are fortunate enough to have those, room tidiness, whatever else, without time blindness kicking in and forgetting. That paired with an ability to better balance like emotional regulation, there can be a lot of good to add that on. Added benefit there of using video games as treatments because it's accessible, it's cost effective for the most part. Fuck games being $70 at this point, but still. Most cases you buy the game one time versus repeat use of, like, say, needing, I guess my point here is it's another what's considered a non-pharmacological intervention, meaning you don't take a pill about it. It's not a psychotropic intervention. It's something you buy once, you can revisit, and like so many good stories that you revisit, there's very few diminishing returns from replaying those things. Especially if it's something that the data also supports in revisiting something nostalgia-based and revisiting a game that you love from childhood. Also, hi Carly, welcome in. Good to have you. There's a link for that. I will drop it in the Discord later. This jazz is going crazy. This is it's one of the Square Enix jazz albums. Music's a bit hot though, thank you. Want it to drown me out. We do not want it to drown me out. Just enough in the background. Thank you. Well, I can't very well repeat everything I've just said. Yes, I can. Gaming for mental health. Could specially designed video games benefit the mental health of children and teenagers? Yes, albeit modestly. We're not doing that again. Hopefully the audio balances out on the VOD. I'll just have to be okay with that. Now for something on metacognition. What is metacognition? We talked about it before. It's thinking about thinking. It's the first step in being human in most cases. When I say being human, well, because as far as we know, animals aren't capable of thinking about thinking. They're aware of themselves, presumably, but they're not aware that they're aware of themselves, if that makes sense. We are, as far as we can demonstrate, reliably, in some cases. Though, I know there are some people who don't have, like, the inner voice, which is subjectively terrifying, but they get by. It doesn't mean they're not capable of metacognition. Completely separate thought. The first part of that, Grams. If you know your Descartes, if you know your René Descartes, the first part of that. What's the first part of that? Dubito. Doubt. You must doubt. That helps beget humility. Social intelligence. You doubt, therefore you think, therefore you is. When people facing uncertainty about an important identity goal are nudged, like a puppy rolling a ball forward, they're nudged, or a seal, they're nudged to question the validity of their own doubts, their commitment to that goal actually increases. Like, say, doubting one's ability to, if you've been squeamish, squishy, or at all apprehensive about streaming, public speaking, performing in ABC vicinity, getting to know your inner critic and doubting your doubts. And this ties into another strategy of putting your thoughts on trial. You can put your thoughts on trial and make a case for the doubt of that inner critic that may be presented to you of like, hey, what evidence do I have to support that I can't do this? I don't really have much, outside of maybe some, like, name-calling and some I'm so stupid, I can't do this kind of thing.
Would you understand that I was simply being European?
Hallowed Zombie_Phoenix has cut the shit for one. Zombie_Phoenix gifted a tier 1 sub
Thank
to
you.
Manic Socratic. They have given 56 gift subs in the channel.
Dolphins have passed that test, you believe? I believe it. And I think crows. I know I overgeneralized with animals earlier. So my main reference, what I was saying earlier, is primarily based on dogs. So I'll just limit it to that versus speaking for all animals, just to recount what I was saying earlier, because that was way too broad. Basing what I was saying about, like, metacognition, that was completely isolated to dogs as much as we love them. Doesn't mean they're dumb. As far as we rate like conscientiousness, cognition, metacognition, being aware that we're self-aware to kind of beyond a psychological and more into like a philosophical realm. We just, I guess, the better way to say it is we can't really measure it. But like the mirror test with dolphins and, yeah, that does come to mind. Thank you for gifting a sub to Manic. Oh, my chat froze again. Damn it! I hate it when OBS does that. But yeah, quick tangent, helpful cognitive tangent. This is like, to me, loosely referencing skills that we've talked about here before that you can access for free 99, like any cognitive strategy, like putting thoughts on trial. But going on for this, the research demonstrates that including metacognitive doubt about one's doubts can flip ambivalence into renewed motivation. Across 2 experiments, participants who felt uncertain about achieving a major goal became more committed when their confidence in their own thoughts was disrupted. And any task to like escape rumination and self-doubt also helps. I mean, one of the greatest antidotes to anxiety in general that's usually funded by doubt is action. And that's a DBT skill too that we've talked about plenty too, is acting opposite, meaning just try to move forward with any measure of what you might be apprehensive about trying to accomplish. The findings highlight how subtle cognitive shifts can influence perseverance, but also caution that this approach must be used carefully to avoid fostering overconfidence. Hey, overconfidence mentioned. We talked about that at the start of stream. Key facts: metacognitive doubt include inducing doubt in a person's own thoughts led them to question their negative beliefs about their goals. I do like that it cautions about the perils of overconfidence, because I mean, they certainly exist. Dunning-Kruger or otherwise. Overconfidence and overestimation. We talked about overestimation several months back, but overestimation can lead to some wild errors. Commitment shift. Individuals uncertain about a major life goal became more committed when their thought confidence was reduced. 2 experiments, writing tasks and non-dominant hand methods, produced the same effect, showing how robust changes in goal commitment. I'm curious how they pulled that off. From Ohio State University, when it comes to our most important long-term goals in life, it is not uncommon to face obstacles that may lead us to doubt whether we can achieve our ambitions. When life hands you doubts, the answer may be to question your doubts, a new study suggests. A psychology professor found that when people who were worried about achieving an identity goal were induced to experience what is called metacognitive doubt, they actually became more committed to achieving their goal. What this study found is that inducing doubts in one's doubts, you ever doubt your doubts in the pale moonlight, can provide a formula for confidence. Author of the study went on to say, the study was published on an online journal related to self and identity, or called Self and Identity. The journal is called Self and Identity. They were interested in what happens when people have what is called an action crisis while pursuing an identity goal. I wonder if this is also like semantically related to what we would, kind of colloquially say as analysis paralysis. A long-term objective centered on you. A long-term objective centered on who you want to become in life. Okay, this is longer term. This is more existential. This is more long-term and existential. Wanted to become a doctor, for instance, is an identity goal. Okay, so this isn't ordering from the Cheesecake Factory menu. This is self-connection, existential type review. An action crisis is a decision conflict where you are not sure if you want to continue pursuit of the goal. When we are pursuing identity goals, bumps in the road inevitably arise. There may come a point where the obstacle is big enough to evoke doubts about whether to continue. Most research on the topic has focused specifically on those doubts and how they can impact whether people go forward with their goals. But based on previous work done by Ohio State researchers, Carroll decided, that's the author, decided to examine metacognitive doubt, which is the sense of certainty a person has in the validity of one's thoughts. In the case of this research, a person can have doubts about whether they can achieve their goal, but what happens if you make the person wonder if their doubts are valid? Carroll conducted 2 studies. One involved 267 people who participated online. First, they completed an action crisis scale about the most important personal goal. The scale included items such as, I doubt whether I should continue striving for my goal or disengage from it. And participants responded on a scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree. I'm guessing you used a Likert scale. Likert, however you want to say it, but I think it's correctly Likert. Participants were then told they would take part in a second, unrelated study on the effect of memory writing exercises. Half of these participants were asked to write about a time they felt confidence in their thinking. The other time they were asked to write about a time when they had experienced doubt in their thinking. After completing the exercise, all participants were asked to rate how committed they were to achieving the most important personal goal on a scale from not committed at all to very committed. Findings showed that writing exercises succeeded in making people feel more confident or more doubtful in their own thoughts about their identity goal, even though the writing exercise was not directly connected to their goals. I mean, if you haven't already journaled, it's not for everybody. It's one of those prescriptive advice things that gets thrown out there like, go do yoga about your depression. There are studies that support that yoga is more effective than medication, but that doesn't mean don't take your medication, right? So when I say this, journaling is literally a way to separate yourself from your thoughts and put some action behind that and slow yourself down and review that. It's hard not for it to be beneficial. But again, it's not for everybody, accessibility or otherwise. But that's what's happening here in a way, from what I can interpret, is they're asking people to examine their thoughts and write them out and reminisce in a way. Here's how it worked. The participants who felt doubtful about their identity goal then wrote about an experience feeling confident. Those participants who felt doubtful about their identity goal and then wrote about an experience feeling confident were less committed to achieving their goal. In other words, the writing exercise made them more confident in their doubts about achieving their goal. On the other hand, those who felt doubtful about their goal and then wrote about an experience of feeling doubtful in their own thoughts actually had higher levels of commitment to their goals. For them, writing about doubt made them question their own doubts about achieving their goal. There's the catch. On some level, it may seem that doubt would be addictive. Doubt plus doubt would equal more doubt. But this study found the opposite. Doubt plus doubt equaled less doubt. How doubly doughty. You ever double down on your dirty doubts? Carroll replicated the findings in another study involving 130 college students. That involved, I love that most of these studies we review involve college students. They used a different way of inducing doubt. In this study, Carroll used a technique developed by Ohio State researchers that had the participants complete the action crisis scale with their non-dominant hand. Previous research showed that using non-dominant hand leads participants to have doubts in their own thoughts because they use their shaky handwriting as a cue that their thoughts must be invalid, which is another thing you can use cognitive strategies to separate the negative bias from if they're taught that, but we're talking about kids here. And that is exactly what they found in the study. So in 2 different studies, we found that inducing metacognitive doubt can lead to people doubting their own doubts. On a practical level, it may be difficult for individuals to induce doubts about their doubts on their own. One reason it worked in this study is that participants were not aware that the doubt induction was related to their goal doubts. Goal doubt. Twin Glock ponies? This could be more effective if someone else, a therapist, a teacher, a friend, or a parent, could help a person question their own thoughts and doubts. As a friend to any friend, I would hope you have the opportunity to do that and you're close enough with somebody to help them. You don't want a person to be aware that you're getting them to question their doubts about their goals. Carroll also noted that this technique should be used carefully because it could potentially undermine wise judgment if overused or misapplied. You don't want to undermine humility and replace it with overconfidence or premature certainty. This needs to be used wisely. Agree. Hard agree. Overconfidence can lead to people jumping without parachutes, figuratively or literally. I've had therapists do this a lot, like, I hear the belief you're telling me, let's dig into whether it's really logical. Have you found that helpful? Have you found that sort of like Socratic approach helpful? Because sometimes it backfires. Because sometimes you or me, the client in therapy, are already aware that what we're saying isn't quite lining up. We just need a different way to hear it than something confrontational, necessarily. Not to suggest that the word confrontational is inherently negative. Confronting and challenging maladaptive cognitions is helpful. Have somebody kind of be that person to project on and then answer back. But that's why there are different therapy modalities to help guide that experience too. The banishing spell to get rid of you? Graham, stay. I listen to I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream so that quote is freshly in the brains. Oh. Did you see what we posted in the Discord earlier? Just curious about the question of the day, the tattoo or the ring? Or a piercing, I guess it was just, it said piercing. I assumed like a hoop. The question of the day was, would you rather have a tattoo that wanders or that moves around on you, or would you rather have instead a piercing that moves around? I think a majority of people who responded today were on Team Tatty for presumably less biologically impedant rationale. So my thought went to having like a little hoop around my doo-doo hole and, you know, making way through that. That just didn't seem like a wish to fulfill. I was, you know, if I briefly have a tattoo on my face, whatever. What are you gonna do? Forget about it. It's gonna move. Yeah, zombie, I get it. Some have known bodily hardship already. Times it's useful, other times I'm convinced I am right, but can't necessarily form a logical reasoning for why. That makes sense. Always something to explore too. I always found that I developed, and it's probably the way it works with a lot of people, I always found that I developed more insights and like self-profundity after going to therapy than in session. But I think so often is the case, that's how it's gonna work, is like the actual therapy happens outside of the office, like if you're doing homework, you know? Well, I'll say that, the actual therapy, the actual healing happens outside of the office in so many cases. Like the profound, the insights and sometimes like, you know, breakthroughs will happen in session. But I always found that I was better capable of, I don't know, to use a DBT term, wise mind analysis, you know, post hoc therapy. Kate had a great idea when we had her on a few months back, getting ice cream after therapy. Get a little treat, get a little post-therapy treat. I imagine a piercing that moves and changes in nature. Yeah, right, so yeah, it doesn't always have to be a hoop. I don't know why I was fixated on a hoop. I was fixated on a poop hoop. And I just, it repulsed me. The idea of having like, you know, a couple nipple things, that seemed fun for like a week. But outside of these, the only thing I've ever pierced was my lip when I was 19. I didn't keep that in very long. It was cute though. Sometimes it's a bar, sometimes it's a hoop. I think these are really cute. The septum rings, people who dig on those, like, I'm not gonna get one, but I think they're cool. My persuasive drive for autonomy gets in the way of doing my homework. Valid. Totally valid. One ring, but it's on my peeper. Go on, Soren, I dare you. Come and get it, fuckface. Yeah, that extended edition, almost 4 hours. Most people didn't get to that scene. Where were we? Oh yeah, new study. The biological roots behind the chills you get from music and art. For that matter, I would love to know the last song you heard where you got chills, because it's such a rare experience. Or art, if you've experienced art in such a way, sculpture, painting, whatever your medium is, if it affects you in that way, that's a pretty special occasion, because that means that you were safe enough to like really engage with it. And perhaps tying to what we were talking about earlier, with a little sip of some metacognition, it impacted you on a physiological place. Several. Oh, hi, Helen. Our Helen's Helen. The people's Helen. Omega Chef. How you doing? Good to have you.
Hi, Helen.
I should just change the Heather react to Helen.
She was
but we already have a hi, Helen. Good to have you. Yeah, I would love to incorporate more of y'all's music into stream, especially for like the parts of stream that I don't save for the VOD, like the just chatting stuff I save for the VODs and then upload to YouTube later for the Existential Bread channel. But like, I've noticed lately when we're playing games, I would prefer to not always play video game music. And if I'm not using those part of the VODs anyway, and they're gonna be censored, like why not justify listening to what we want? Share and share alike for a little personal music therapy. So in this case, I want to know what gave you chills in a good way. I'll share when I find the CFCF track. The artist's initials CFCF. They're sort of like Boards of Canada, but I picked up one of their older vinyls a month ago or so when I was out for work and popped into a record store, and it really surprised me. One of the tracks on there got up all in my tinglies. New research reveals that the tendency to feel a shiver. It's a Toadies line. And I confess a shiver. I was listening to Toadies earlier too, and it got me. Feel a shiver down the spine. It's electrifying when listening to a beautiful song or looking at a striking painting, or people who look like paintings. Told you I'd do it again. The findings suggest that the intense physical and emotional responses people have to different forms of art share a common biological function. It really tunes our tingle, you know? I think it bypasses just about everything else and hits right onto our vagus nerve and goes, goo-choo-goo! A study was published in the journal of POLS Genetics. For centuries, writers and philosophers, writerings and philosopherings have described the intense physical reactions that art can produce. Charles Darwin wrote about shivering from pleasure while listening to a choir in a grand chapel. Other thinkers have described a telltale tingle. I love that it uses tingle. That's in our vernacular. That signals a work of genius. These physical reactions are commonly known as aesthetic chills. There's your take-home buzzwords for the day, aesthetic chills. We had omniphobic that we're going to borrow and reuse and help grow from Claire. We had omniphobic, but then aesthetic chills. We can use that too. I like that. While we tune our tingles, we use aesthetic chills. Or may we earn some aesthetic chills from having our tingles tuned. So like physical art that I've seen that really stuck with me, Motherwell, Robert Motherwell. I forget which writer he was a contemporary of. It'll come to me later, but either way, like his painting's not for everybody, but I adored it. Just because I was on a guided docent tour whenever I saw, god damn it, how pretentious does that sound? I was on a guided docent tour when I saw Robert Motherwell's paintings. The point is, I got some insight into his state of mind when he was making specific paintings, such that he was woefully depressed during making some of the works that really stood out to me. And as you hear about him changing some relationships and his position in life, you see the paintings get a little bit brighter, and to kind of like see what windows he was painting from his perspective go from like a darkened place looking out to a place where light may be, and then gradual paintings kind of arriving to the other side of his own like journey, like that fucked with me in a good way. Tuned my tingles, aesthetic chills, just to speak to something that wasn't a song that really got a hold of me. A chill in this context refers to a sudden wave of strong emotion that often triggers physical changes. Claire, you've got Eleanor number 7 on the Mad Lax OST. I don't know it, but we can look it up. I may need some reminding, but I would like to know more. Sudden wave of strong emotion that often triggers physical changes. People describe these moments as feeling a shiver down the back or suddenly developing goosebumps. Or goose pimples. I've never called them goose pimples in my life, but I've heard that said and it weirds me out. In biological terms, the response involves the brain's reward centers, which is usually our amygdala, but then there's thalamus, hypothalamus, brainstem, it's all there. But usually our amygdala is like the big emotion reward center. The brain activation parallels the processes seen when humans encounter basic biological needs like food, but here it is triggered by abstract cultural creations. Experiencing chills experiencing chills offers a distinct and measurable way to study human emotional responses. They connect a subjective feeling of pleasure to an automatic physical reaction. Not everyone experiences these sensations in the same way or with the same intensity. Past research involving families and twins suggested that the tendency to feel chills from art is partially inherited. Studies comparing identical and fraternal twins, which if you don't know, twin studies are considered like the holy of holies amongst, double blind, yeah, but twin studies are considered the holy of holies amongst, just because of rarity and reliability, for like funding validity in research. Identical and fraternal twin studies indicated a genetic component to these reactions, yet I love that we have such an evolutionarily based, that's the implication, right? That we have such an evolutionary based and drive to make and experience music and then experience it in that way. Yet earlier projects relied on mathematical models of family inheritance rather than actual molecular data, which seems way less reliable. Relying purely on family trees leaves lingering questions about the exact biological mechanisms at play. Family members share childhood environments along their genes. This shared environment can make it difficult to determine whether similarities stem from biological inheritance or growing up in the same household. Twin designs also rely on assumptions about how families share their environments. These models generally assume that identical twins experience the same level of emotional similarity as fraternal twins. If this assumption is incorrect, the models might overestimate the role of genetics. To investigate the biological roots of these responses directly, a research team set out to analyze actual variations in human DNA. These investigators wanted to see if specific genetic markers could explain why some people were more prone to intense reactions. They aimed also to determine if genetic roots of music-induced chills overlap with those triggered by visual art or poetry. Come to think of it, even like some video game music has really added some layers of enhancement because you're already experiencing kind of a multi-modality framework on how you're experiencing that music to better encapsulate the kind of like emotional context. Well, movies do it too, but I think video games have just hit me personally quite a bit more deeply. Somebody on Threads posted earlier today too about the Nier series, and Song of the Ancients from the Nier series really got me. And the language in that is completely made up. All languages are made up, right? But just for the world building in the Nier series, and it's not the first to do this, sure, but the world building in the Nier series, they created a language and then had, symphony orchestra come in and vocalists, and then they sang in that language to where parts of it sound vaguely like English, parts of it sound vaguely like Italian, parts of it sound vaguely like Portuguese. It's all just kind of this hodgepodge language that's sort of meant to be this amalgam of what the last of humanity might have been speculated to sound like, and that was part of like the speculative sci-fi that was in the game. I know this is a big tangent, but all the same, just an example of other ways music really got to me, like one other song that gave me the, what was the term again? I already lost it. Aesthetic chills. Aesthetic chills. Let's see. Giacomo Bignardi, a researcher at the Max Planck Institute for Psycholinguistics, led the study. He collaborated with colleagues Danielle Admiral, Elsie Ising, and Simon E. Fisher. The team sought to bridge the gap between subjective cultural experiences and modern genomic science. The researchers utilized, I think they're looking for more data to support like an evolutionary background for this, which makes me very excited. The researchers utilized data from a large health and genetics project in the Netherlands called Lifelines. The project collects medical, genetic, and lifestyle information from generations of families living in the northern region of the country. For this specific analysis, the team gathered self-reported survey data from more than 15,000 adult participants. Participants then answered questions about their emotional reactions to different types of media. They rated how often they felt waves of excitement or chills when reading poetry, looking at visual art. Time for a drink. Let me get bubble-throated there. I went Gollum on you for a second there.
Looking at reading visual poetry, looking at visual art, and listening to music.
There we go. They rated how often they felt waves of excitement or chills when reading poetry, looking at visual art, or listening to music. The researchers then paired these survey responses with genetic information extracted from participants' biological samples. To hunt for genetic patterns, the team looked at common variations in the participants' genetic code. These variations are small differences in the building blocks of DNA that occur naturally across populations. By comparing the complete genetic profiles of the participants, the researchers could then measure how genetically similar any two people in the study were. The team employed a statistical method to compare genetic similarity with trait similarity. If people who share more DNA variations also share similar tendencies to experience art chills, it indicates a distinct genetic association with the trait. They're trying to rule out, basically, if you grew up in an artsy family with no known evidence to support that you were likely to get the aesthetic chills, you know, would there be some evidence to support that would happen independently or otherwise? I think. They applied this method across a mix of closely related family members, distant relatives, and completely unrelated individuals. Yeah, I think they're trying to capture just data to support this doesn't happen in a silo. It's not just like anecdotal information of people passing it down like, oh, I sneeze when I go outside too. When the sunlight hits me, there's evolutionary foundations for that too. The researchers estimated that 29% of the variation in how frequently people experience chills is linked to family relatedness. When looking specifically at the common DNA variations tracked by standard genetic testing, they found that these specific markers accounted for about a quarter of the family effect that shows the measurable differences in DNA are directly linked to how intensely people react to the art. Do I like Sigur Rós? I do, or at least I haven't listened to them in years, like since college. So it'd be like, I don't know, between 2005, 2010. I fucked heavy with Sigur Rós, such that I thought I knew how to say it correctly. Like, it's not Sigur Rós, it's Sigur Rós. And the whole the lead singer making like a Norse-landic type of fairy language into the lyrics, which I don't know if they still use that or not, but that was the lore at the time. Yeah, I never got to see them live, but they had this performance that was one of the first concerts I ever watched on YouTube, where, what song was that? It was like Talk or something like that. They open the song and they're playing behind this like transparency curtain, and they're just silhouettes on the screen. And then when the song hits like its big moment, the curtain opens up and you finally get to see the band. It was a big theatric presentation. It was very pretty. That got to me. I don't know if I like them as much now as I did then, but I don't know, it's just from kind of like sort of discontinued use of listening to them. Still positive, very positive association with them. Did you get chills? Were they your artist that gives you chills? The research has estimated that up to 29% of variation in how frequently people experience chills is linked to family relatedness. When looking specifically at the common DNA, did I already read that? Whatever. When looking specifically at common DNA variations tracked by standard genetic testing, they found these specific markers accounted for about a quarter of the family effect. Yeah, we read that. Scientists noted that the specific DNA markers they tracked explained only a portion of total genetic effect seen within families. The gap is common in genetic research and happens for a variety of reasons. The laboratory experiment used to scan DNA primarily picks up common genetic differences, potentially missing rare mutations that might influence subjective traits. Next, the team investigated whether the genetic factors involving musical chills, aesthetic chills, are the same as those involving visual art and poetry. They calculated a metric called genetic correlation to see how much the biological basis of these traits overlap. The analysis revealed a more moderate overlap between the two categories. Poetry never quite hit me in that way. Not to say there hasn't been poetry that moved me, like Robert Frost stuff, good. Or just like anything from a novel, right? Oscar Wilde comes to mind. Good stuff. I'm sure there's more modern examples I can think of, but just for like, you know, to sound artsy, shit that would move you potentially and be easily recommended. It's probably say poetry, you know, just wasn't my bag necessarily. I love writing, poetry wasn't really my bag. Visual art, absolutely, has given me chills as many times as music, if I can like roughly try to quantify that. I've got some homework to do for my streams. Yeah, I do. Well, Claire's giving me some music there too. I'm into that. I mean, I hope that benefits us all. Like any opportunity we have to share, exchange music, that's one of the finer gifts we can give each other. Aside from knowledge for the sake of knowledge, we were talking about earlier. Very much into that too. The moderate correlation means that many of the genetic variations associated with the sensitivity to painted or written art also increase the likelihood of responding strongly to music. Correlation was not absolute, which indicates some genetic factors are unique to a specific art form. The biological machinery that makes someone respond strongly to a painting is related to, but distinct from, the machinery that makes them shiver at a symphony. Which might also explain why someone like me doesn't necessarily connect to poetry, but loves physical art and music. Not that poetry isn't physical art, you know, it's just a different way to experience that. I can't think of what another way to describe that. Dobbinses! Good to see you. Welcome in, Sam. And old tech guy. Hey, howdy, hi. The team applied this genetic index back to their current study participants in the Netherlands. They found that individuals with genetic profiles linked to high openness were more likely to report experiencing chills from music, art, and poetry. Go figure. I wonder what like there's like an empathy index on that too, just like an ability to allow yourself to sit with something and think about it. Definitely ties to like an ability to be metacognitive, think about thinking, like we were talking about earlier here. The genetic index only accounted for a fraction of a percent of the total variation, but the association was clear. The findings suggest a general biological predisposition. The findings suggest a general biological predisposition towards certain personality types, shapes our momentary bodily reactions to cultural products. What's another way to put that? We have, as we are biopsychosocial creatures, and everything that impacts us from birth to being social learners are going to influence our proclivities. Another way to say that. The tendency to seek out and appreciate art seems to share a biological pathway with the physical thrill of experiencing it. Because not everybody is a roller coaster junkie. Our personalities and our physical reflexes are intertwined down to a cellular level. And again, reinforcing what I could glean from this earlier on, and that we have an evolutionary drive to experience art, make music, share it, which is why principally we would experience it like such the body's communicating safety at that point. If you're getting that aesthetic chill, that's about as safe as you're gonna feel. To ensure the accuracy of their models, the team checked for a phenomenon where people choose partners with similar traits. If people who got chills from art tend to form relationships with one another, it can skew the mathematical models and make a trait appear more strictly governed by genetics than it actually is. Examining data from more than 3,000 romantic partners in the biobank, they found only a very weak correlation. This gave them confidence that their genetic estimates were not heavily based. The study relies entirely on self-reported survey answers, which induces a margin of error. People may interpret questions about their own feelings differently from day to day or year to year, or for that matter, moment to moment. Like if you were to take some sort of like PHQ or BIMS or some kind of depression inventory, you might change from morning to evening. This subjective variation likely causes the mathematical models to underestimate the true extent of genetic influence. Another limitation is they always go through limitations like weaknesses of a study for not necessarily humility purposes, but we know there's evidence to support that's an important characteristic. But like in all research, all good research worth its bona fides, they take time to acknowledge what could make it better to improve its reliability and validity the next time around. So if you ever wonder like, yeah, well, why are they shit-talking their own study at the end? They're not. They're just identifying what could have made it a little more robust. Another limitation is genetic analysis focused exclusively on participants of European descent. Genetic variation differs broadly across global populations, and cultural attitudes towards music and art also vary widely. Yeah, like in the US, I would be curious to see like, you know, cultural appraisal widely of, you know, who appreciates art here, like outside of, you know, this in group and others, like across the US. Do we have broader cultural appreciation for the arts than a population in Sweden or France or the UK? I got a hunch that we don't necessarily, because right-wing schmucks are defunding, devaluing anything that sounds sciencey or liberal. And they're on a goddamn roll, ain't they? The current data cannot reveal exactly how DNA variations change a person's physical biology to produce chill. The physical mechanisms of goosebumps, which involve tiny muscles contracting near hair follicles, often accompanies emotional chills. That we get goosebumps at all is also another great signal of evidence to support evolution at that point. When we were much hairier, we get goosebumps for all of our hair to kind of stand on end and make us appear a little more intimidating. Sort of like a bird ruffling its feathers. Often these traits often accompany emotional chills, but can occur independently, right? So we've get a mystery chill. Open the door to your mystery chill. You'll get those occasionally, without having an immediate context for why. More research is needed to trace the path from genetic code to brain activity and physical skin reactions. Future investigations might utilize larger genetic databases and more advanced physiological measurements. Comparing these physical responses across different age groups and geographic regions could show how human biology varies naturally over time. For now, research provides a new way to think about why a favorite song or painting can feel physically moving. And if I didn't drop that link yet, I'm fitna. There you go. All of these will be dropped in the Discord later, and then when I upload the VOD to YouTube, everybody say hi to YouTube. Hi, YouTube! When I upload the VOD to YouTube, I'll have the links in the description for the video, too. There's always a question of what is art. For example, did they include rap in the study of poetry? I don't know. I would imagine they included that in their study of music. But without seeing more of the data behind, this is more just like a summary of the study without seeing the actual methodology and the nitty-gritty of the study. It would be hard to say, and that's the thing, like most medical journals are behind a paywall, so we may not have access to that. But maybe. We get a sense of what music they were including. Well, no, because in this case, they wouldn't have that because the data would have been self-reported from people like you and me, but in Europe, So we would have been at the mercy of whatever that person considers music and art that impacted them. So I don't know if they would have had a chance to qualify that. But it looks like this is publicly available, which is a nice touch. So there's that. Yeah, more often than not, I'm not looking at the medical journal. I'm looking at a review of that and then kind of expounding on it to the best of my own ability. I get goosebumps when I watch something sometimes, especially when it's a very emotional scene or just thrilling moments. It's so cool when my body reacts to media. I love that for you. Yeah, I think that's good storytelling and a good sense that you are playfully engaged with the story if you're allowing yourself to experience that. Like with music, with movies especially. You know, we have pro-social relationships with the characters on screen. We know who they are, they don't know who we are. And we care about their outcomes and what's going on. Are they aware of their pursuer or whatever else? It can be exciting. There's a lot of translatable skills to derive from experiencing that media to then self and social settings too. I have to run ads very soon, so we'll kind of conclude this chapter of the stream. When we come back, we'll play more Puppeteer, because I think we're a little more than halfway through. So we'll see how much further we can get. Yeah, that is one of the more bogus things that I would love to help correct in all of academia is public access to all bodies of research. Yeah, there are so many medical journals. And there's typically a select handful who kind of command the majority of publishing. Yeah, Google Scholar can help some. Internet Archive also, in some cases. All right, now is the moment of stream when I encourage you to scan your body meats. A little somatic experiencing for your ass. Or all of you, for that matter. But scan your body meats from your toes to your tingles and turn towards those and give yourself sensorially what you need. For you neurodivergent cuties, myself included, good opportunity to check in with your entero and proprioception, your awareness of your overall internal external sensory needs, and give yourself what you need. If it's gonna be more of me, thank you. I must run ads at the top of the hour, and we come back, video games. And give you some music to move by.